Welcome to the Keeping It Teal podcast. We are the CCU sports podcast that truly keeps it teal 24/7. I'm your host, Hunter Santiago, and I'm joined today by my two co-hosts, AJ Moran and Jay Largent. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Hawaii Bowl week. The Chants are in Hawaii. They're getting ready. They're getting hype. We're starting to see a little bit more of like the coastal culture that we used to have. We got Tim Beck over there with all the different cheerleaders getting hype. You got Chauncey, who apparently has human legs if you look at it behind AJ's screen. Something's going on. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later. But listen, ladies and gentlemen, it's our fourth bowl game in a row. We're hoping to go 2-2 in bowls and get our second ever bowl victory. We're playing San Jose State, and no better way to start our bowl week podcast than getting to know the opponent. So let's start with our first segment for the San Jose State preview. Ladies and gentlemen, we have multiple players who have hit the portal that we discussed in previous podcasts who are going to be attending this game. I'd say about 80 to 90% of them are actually not going to be taking any snaps. We don't even know if they will dress or not, but they will be present. Grayson McCall being one of them who transferred to NC State. He will be present. It's looking like Ethan Vasco will be the starting quarterback, but there's a chance that Blake Boda may get to take some snaps in this game, and maybe Jared Guest. That's still up in the air. He has hit the transfer portal, but to my knowledge, he does not have any offers that we are aware of. So maybe he plays some snaps in this bowl game to try to get more offers, or maybe he sits out in hopes that he will still get offers with the limited amount of tape that he has. But it will be interesting to see how our team, addresses the quarterback situation in this bowl game, whether it's Vasco all the way through, whether it's Guest, whether it's Boda, whether it's splitting reps, and what will Grayson McCall's leadership on the sidelines look at for his final game repping teal, even if it's in a teal sweatshirt. And then, as we talked about at the very beginning of this podcast, the Beck and cheerleaders photo that is right behind AJ. This photo got a lot of fans hyped. It's the most reposted photo I've seen for like fans of like Coastal Carolina who might not be super like in depth with the sports programs we have, but just are like, I went to Coastal or whatever, and they're like fans of our teams. There's a lot of people like, oh, wow, we're getting the Coastal culture back. Like Beck is out there acting like a Coastal Carolina coach, right? What happened? They deleted the post. I was talking to AJ and Jay, as well as a few other guys that we are really close with, about how cool like this kind of post is, how like it makes, Beck look like a Chad. It gives us like we're a beach school playing in a beach type of bowl. Like this is really, really cool. This is what we want to see. And something happened. It's deleted. But guess what? Enough Coastal fans have it. It's everywhere. It's not going anywhere. All right, let's transition over to some information about San Jose State's season. They're 7-5, but the guys have some stats and information on how this season looked for them, as well as we'll get into players to look out for. So, hey, gentlemen, take it away.
All right, we're playing the San Jose Spartans in the Hawaii Bowl. They were 7-5, and a couple years ago they were as good as we were in 2020, and some people are saying this is the 2020 national championship game for the group of five, and we got to come out with a win in Hawaii and bring back a dub to Conway. AJ, what you got about the Spartans of San Jose State?
Yeah, so there's a couple important things to note here. The Spartans have won their last 6 games heading into this bowl game. They wound up going just shy of that Mountain West Conference Championship game, but they've been rolling as of late. This is the first ever meeting between us and the Spartans. But some other things is that this is basically a game that's kind of in their own backyard. They have 5 guys from the state of Hawaii, including their quarterback, which Shay's probably going to talk about a little bit later, who played for Hawaii and then transferred. He's a Hawaii kid. San Jose State played at Hawaii this season. They beat Hawaii 35-0 in that same stadium that we're playing in this bowl game. San Jose State is just under 2,500 miles away from where they're playing, which is far, but it's definitely not as far as us. We are about like 5,000 miles, right? It's like more than double that. And, San Jose State barely missed again that Mountain West Conference Championship game. They've been rolling. And like I said, this home field advantage is going to be a big time factor for them, I think, in this one.
Now that we know a bit about San Jose State's regular season performance, their 7-5 record, and some information about how the team has played so far, during that season. Let's transition over to San Jose State players to look out for heading into this bowl game. AJ, who do you have?
Yeah, so first off, I'm going to go with number 32 running back Kyrie Robinson. This year, 157 carries, 1,124 yards, 18 touchdowns. I believe he is a second team All-American, guy that runs the ball hard. And they're going to be giving him the ball a lot this game. And defensively, I'm going with number 6 linebacker, Byron Parham. 50 unassisted tackles, 94 total tackles. So he, tackling a lot. 5 tackle for loss, 2.5 sacks, a pick, forced fumble in the year. Now that we're at the end of the year, those stat sheets are pretty filled. For me, I think these guys are going to be impact players because there are times where we've done good at stopping the run, and then there are other times where they just beat us down crazy. And I think this might be one of those games where San Jose State's going to want to set the tone and they want to set the pace of play. So they're going to run the ball a lot. And like I said, Kyrie Robinson is that guy for them. He's that workhorse. And then again, defensively, with Parham, we always on the defensive side of the ball, right? Those linebackers are big time, right? They are those leaders of the defense because they try to stop our run, and then they also help direct passing lanes and stuff like that, and rush and all the fun stuff. So I think as the team's leading tackler, he's going to be one of those guys that's going to have to step up and really really help out the Spartan defense. But Jay, who do you have?
First off, on offense, as AJ said, there's 5 Hawaii kids, so I'm going to take one of them, and it's their quarterback, Chevin Carrito. I mean, he's a senior playing his final game in his home state in Hawaii, where he previously had his career started at, and he's thrown for over 2,000 yards. I mean, he's thrown 19 touchdowns, 4 picks. He's the workhorse for their offense. They're like general. He keeps them all together, gets them going and all that. So we got to be able to contain him and also get him off his throws and get pressure on him. And on defense, I have Jordan Pollard. He's only a sophomore from LA, and he's second on the team in tackles with 73 total. And if we don't put bodies on him, he's going to have a field day on us on our offensive line. And I can see these being impact players for the Spartans in the Hawaii Bowl.
Thanks, gentlemen. Now that we know a bit about the San Jose State players to look out for going into this bowl game, let's talk about how Coastal Carolina can come out with their second ever bowl game victory in a 4-year back-to-back-to-back bowl year span. Jay, what do you have?
First off, you got to start out fast, take the crowd out of it, get the players' energy and physicality up, because if we don't bring the physicality and energy like the Spartans are, haven't won their last 6 games, then we're going to get run out of Hawaii. AJ, what do you got?
All right, here we go. I know you all have probably missed it for a couple weeks now. Here we go. Hot start, strong finish. Again, I'm going to say it, and this time it's more important because my guess is that we're going to be outnumbered in the fan department. I just talked about the distancing between where we're at. I assume there's going to be some more San Jose State fans there, right? So it's going to probably be almost like a home game for them, probably, depending on how many fans want to make that trip. So again, you're going to have to get that hot start, especially with everything going on, right? Drop it all, right? Forget what's going on. Go play football like you know how to play. Again, put everything aside. Let's play our game here. It's probably going to be the last time you're playing with some of these guys. So again, you want to make it count. You want to end what was probably a tough season, then we could all agree on a good note, right? Finally end on a high, right? And hopefully carry that momentum into the next year. So again, you want that hot start, right? Get moving quickly, and start that momentum, get that ball rolling, and finish strong, help close it out, and let's head home with a win.
Now that the guys have broken down how Coastal Carolina can come out with their second ever bowl game victory at the Hawaii Bowl versus San Jose State, let's transition over to the Coastal Carolina players to keep an eye out for going into this bowl game. AJ, who are your guys that you got?
So offensively, starting out pretty obvious here. Number 15 wide receiver, Sam Pinckney. Again, it's going to be his last time dressing up for the Chants. And this season, he has been our leading receiver. 64 catches, 904 yards, 7 touchdowns, and NCAA records to beat. So I think that it's just one of those obvious picks. He's gonna try to leave a statement This is going to be a big time statement game for him, especially to help probably boost some of his stock for ball after college. So I feel like he's one of those guys that has extra to play for in this game. And then defensively, I'm going number 0, Juan Powell. This is an interesting pick for me, especially because we have some absences on the defense. Obviously, the big one being JT Killen, and he's going to have to step into his role. And I think he's going to be able to do that. 31 solo tackles, 55 total tackles this year, 5 tackle for loss, a forced fumble. We missed him big time in that Army game, I know for sure. And it just seemed like, especially without Killen not being there, he's going to have to step up and be that next guy in that linebacking core. And I think especially in this one, he's going to have a big time impact. But Jay, who do you have?
First off, I have the QB. I mean, I'm going to go with Ethan Basketball. We may be surprised. Jared Guest or even Blake Boda might start, but I'm going to go with Ethan Basketball. I mean, as it said was earlier this week, he's the guy to be beat for the starting job next season. So I want to see how he performs. And does he go out and show Beck, yeah, I'm your guy? Or does he just play like he usually does and Beck has to reconsider, oh, you might not be the guy, and we're going to have a big competition this coming offseason to determine who's taking over for our all-time best QB, Grayson McCall, heading to NC State. And then on the defensive side of the ball, also for the last time suiting up for the Chants, have Michael Mason, the South Carolina native, wants to leave a big statement in his last game for the Chants, and I see him being a big driving force in our defensive game plan against the Spartans. Hunter, who you got?
For me, I'm going to start out on offense. I got Jamison Tucker. When you look at, obviously, old man Sam, as AJ picked, he's getting ready to go to the NFL. Jared Brown has transferred. Tyson Mobley has transferred. That leaves us with our number 1 and number 2 receiver in this game being Jamison Tucker and Kyrie Duplessis. This is probably going to be our number 1 and number 2 receivers going into next year. So, but out of the two of them, Jamison Tucker has had a phenomenal year. And Kyrie Duplessis has done pretty well himself too. But when I'm looking at who is most likely going to be the number 1 receiver next year between the two of them, based on the guys that we currently have and the guys that we have coming in, I think Jamison Tucker is the guaranteed guy. When you look back at his first major big play that put him on the scene against App State, he caught that amazing bomb and went in for the touchdown that Grayson McCall threw. Those kind of plays are the kind of plays that you have your Jared Browns of the world making. So we need to make sure that we get Jamison Tucker the ball as much as he possibly can to see what it's going to be like having him as our wide receiver number 1 going into next season to help Tim Beck game plan for all of our opponents we have next year. And then when it comes to the defensive side of the ball, I know AJ was already talking about Juan Powell and his presence at the linebacking core and on defense with JT Killen going to be gone. The same thing goes for Shane Bruce. I'm taking Shane Bruce on the defensive side. One thing that I joked about with the guys before the podcast was we have had Silas Kelly, Teddy Gallagher, and JT Killen, all guys with long hair who ended up getting mullets and becoming the leaders in the linebacking core. And they're all, different times when they were leaders there. Shane Bruce, he's a guy with long hair right now that I think he needs to have his mullet year next year. This is his time to shine and become the leader within the pack of the linebackers and kind of show what he can do. He's already shown in multiple games that he can make big plays and he can carry the defense. So I'd love to see what he can do in this bowl game. And I'd love to see what Shane Bruce can do next year to help elevate our defense and be kind of the leader within the linebacker room. Now that we kind of have all our Coastal Carolina players to watch out for going into this game against San Jose State, let's transfer over to the transfer portal segment, where last week we talked about the giveth and the taketh of the transfer portal, the guys that we lost and the guys that we gained. We're just going to talk about, for the most part, a couple more guys that we gained. Last week, we talked about Noah Kim, the quarterback from Michigan State, AJ Williams, the defensive back from Wake Forest. And then we talked about multiple guys who transferred in from some like Division II, Division III universities. We continue to add some more guys in there. We have a long snapper, Blake Arnold, I believe, from Newberry College. We have Andre Jones, a wide receiver from Eastern New Mexico University. And then we have
Abraham Darwa from Shippensburg University.
So these are a couple guys that we got since our last podcast. It's going to be really exciting to see a lot of these guys, even though they're from like the lower levels of college football, coming in and making their transition into FBS and Group of Five level. Last week, we also talked about like some needs that we still have to address. I think the running back room is still something we need to work on. We need to add in one more guy to help out with Simpkins and Braden Bennett going into next year. It would be nice to get a couple more offensive linemen for whoever our starting quarterback is going to be, whether it's Kim, whether it's Vasco, as was previously mentioned by the guys. Maybe it's Blake Boda. A lot of hype has been pushed today during National Signing Day by a certain individual that we just got committed today. But before I get too far ahead of myself, I'm going to allow Jay to take us into the National Signing Day segment.
So as the time of this recording, National Signing Day was today. 19 kids committed to Coastal, and we brought 19 new Chants home. 10 on the offensive side, 9 on the defensive side of the ball, and a wide range positions. But the three I want to highlight is DJ Moore, obviously the QB. We're having good hype on him. He had 15 offers coming out, and he chose Coastal over a host of Power 5 schools and also G5 schools. And he will also be playing baseball at Coastal, so look for him to have a big impact for the Chants. Next one, I have wide receiver Jalen Harris from North Carolina. He had 13 offers coming out of school, and he chose the Chants over a host of other schools. And he will be enrolling early, and he'll be participating in spring ball this upcoming January and off season. So look for him and DJ Moore to develop chemistry right away. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I got to go with Zach Cody, the DB from Copley, Texas. I mean, anytime we get a kid from Texas who's a DB, he's a pretty good athlete, and he's the highest rated recruit ever out of his high school in Texas. So we're very glad to have him on board and looking forward to seeing what him and these other signees and also next year's team bring to the Chants.
Thank you, Jay, for keeping us notified with the National Signing Day segment. It was a very exciting day. Like I mentioned in the previous segment, there's a lot of hype in Teal Nation about DJ Moore Jr. It's going to be really cool to see if he gets a chance to be one of the next big names at quarterback after his potential redshirt year this season. We'll see how that plays out. Maybe he does have a shot to win the job as a true freshman. We'll see. But either way, I'm excited to see DJ Moore Jr. in Teal. Now let's shift over to our next segment, State of the Sun Belt. This is a segment that we've had several different weeks throughout our Keeping It Teal podcast season 1. One of the big things going on here in the Sun Belt is going into bowl season, we were super hyped about being the best conference at the Group of Five level and bragging about how we technically, now that the Pac-12 is dissolving, that we are technically the 5th best conference at the FBS level. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's not looking pretty for the Sun Belt. It's not looking good for our conference. Right now, we are 1-4 in bowl play, with the only team currently with a bowl win being our Sun Belt runner-up, the Sun Belt East winner, App State, in their bowl game victory earlier last week. Now, we are looking at a season where we might not even break even. We have 12 of the 14 Sun Belt teams made bowl season, which was such a really cool thing that a lot of us are bragging about, whether it's Coastal fans, Louisiana fans, Old Dominion fans, all different kinds of fans of the East and the West, bragging that we are one of the better conferences in college football, and that the vast majority of our conference made it, just for all of our teams to get absolutely routed, except for App State. There's a chance if all of us win out, including our Coastal Carolina Chanticleers, that we can go 8-4 as a conference, which would be really respectable. But the odds do not look in our favor right now. Some of the games coming up, the first one on the slate is us versus San Jose State. You got an Air Force game against JMU. You got a Georgia State versus a Utah State, like 3 of the bigger ones coming up around the corner. There is a world where only one of those 3 teams wins coming up, and I'm believing that's going to be our Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. But in the turmoil that's going on at JMU, and a lot of the really good players coming in obviously can't play in their bowl game right now. They can't play till next season. It's the remaining leftovers of who stuck around after Coach Cigarette Cignetti dipped out to Indiana. So it will be interesting to see how they play against Air Force. as we picked in our Sun Belt Bowl game pick'ems. If you tune into our previous podcast, you'll see our thoughts on those games. But yeah, no, it will be interesting to see how the rest of bowl season plays out. It's not looking good for us. Conference USA has been up, the rear end of the Sun Belt this year, bragging about, especially towards the end of it, that Liberty is a top 25 team now that they have their New Year's Six Bowl too. That's a flex that Conference USA is giving, even though Liberty has one of the worst strength of schedules we've seen for a team that's ranked in the top 25. But also they're currently, if I'm not mistaken, 2-1 in bowl game play with Western Kentucky and Jacksonville State, giving them 2 of their 3 bowl game wins. So if Liberty pulls it off, they can go 3-1. If Liberty cannot pull off their bowl game, they will go 2-2. But 2-2 could look significantly better than the potential that we could finish this, unfortunately, and only be 2-10 in bowl play as a conference. Will it happen? I surely hope not. But there is a chance. There is a world where that is a possibility. And we, as the Sun Belt Conference, surely don't want that to happen. Also, in the state of the Sun Belt right now, as the beginning of this recording, or just a little bit before tonight, Louisiana's quarterback has just hit the transfer portal. This is a guy who has had a pretty phenomenal season, over 1,000 yards passing, 11 touchdowns. And I don't remember the number of interceptions, but I remember it is on the lower end. This is a really stellar quarterback, and we're living in a world where most of the Power 5 teams have pretty much settled like who their starting quarterback is going to be and potentially who their number 2 quarterbacks are going to be. So while I do think their quarterback is very talented, I don't know if he's going to be able to go out there and get a Power 5 offer where he can actually compete for a starting job. So it's looking like a guy like him is probably going to have to go to another group of 5 team. We don't have room for him at Coastal, but it'll be interesting to see, where guys like him commit, where Western Kentucky's quarterback, who came in when they were down like 28-0 or something like that and pulled off the bowl game victory over Old Dominion. I mean, he's in the portal too. There's several really good group of 5 quarterbacks that have just in the last day or so hit the transfer portal. It'll be interesting to see what group of 5 teams they go to next season. Wonder if both of them end up on Sun Belt teams. We'll see, and we'll kind of discuss that in our next State of the Sun Belt. But overall, to close out this segment, it's not a beautiful day in the Sun Belt. I know if you watch ESPN Plus or even just any Sun Belt game, they'll talk about the Sun Belt rising, that ad that they play. It's not looking good right now when it comes to that. Hopefully we have more positive stuff to say about the Sun Belt as a whole when it comes to football in a couple weeks here. But until then, that has been the State of the Sun Belt, ladies and gentlemen. Let's transition over to our perennial weekly Keeping It Up with the Chants segment. Gentlemen, take it away.
Obviously, our men's basketball team, they've had a coaching change with Coach Benny Moss taking over, and they played the College of Charleston this Monday, and they were down 15, but they came back and showed good effort, but ultimately fell to the College of Charleston by 3, and they're 3-7, and their next game will be against North Carolina A&T on Thursday.
Then on the women's side of things, they are now 6-6 after they defeated Chattanooga tonight. As the night of filming this, that is a team that was in the NCAA tournament last year, so that was a big time win for them. And then that is a little tournament type thing. So now they are going to play the winner of Richmond or Michigan State on Thursday, which is tomorrow, which again would have happened by the time this comes out. And then after that is said and done, both the men's and women's teams are off a little bit for the holiday, and then they will get right into conference play and everything will shake down that way. And then, baseball season's right around the corner. It's basically almost here. Again, right after we're done with football season, we might have just little bit bi-weekly type Keeping Up with the Chants type episodes until we get everything locked and loaded again, hyping up that baseball season. Listen, game 1 against George Mason is almost here. We got about 57 days till that game takes place in the Palace. So like we said, even if football season's over, stay with us because we'll be keeping your finger on the pulse. All things Chanticleer.
Thank you, gentlemen, for keeping Teal Nation up to date with all of our different Coastal Carolina athletic programs. Keeping Up with the Chants is such a fun segment to have. It shows, At the Keeping It Teal podcast, we care about more than just football. It's just one of those things that we're really passionate to talk about. And I'm looking forward to seeing how our men's and women's basketball continue to develop as the season goes along. And also excited to see these two gentlemen getting ready to take on baseball season and give you guys the perfect coverage. And I enjoy being there and kind of going along for the ride. All right, let's transition to our last segment of the day, a special segment. We went over our Sun Belt bowl game pick'ems last week. Now we're going to do our New Year's Six pick'ems as we're getting ready to go into the second half of bowl season. We're starting out with Georgia versus Florida State in the Orange Bowl. AJ, who you taking?
All right. So, again, disclaimer before we do these picks. Again, like the other bowl game picks, is difficult because everybody's in the portal, everybody's bouncing around. These, you still have some of that. Don't get me wrong. But also, some of these guys, if it's not, some of these most important games might sit out for draft stock or whatever. But for the most part, most of these games is all in. So you get to really see who the better teams are. This first one, Georgia against Florida State, just to draw out the storylines for you guys, I'm sure everybody kind of already knows. Georgia undefeated all year, top of the polls, basically losing the SEC championship to Alabama. That is a one-loss team that now gets booted out of the playoff. Florida State, however, goes undefeated all year, including the ACC championship, but gets denied the playoff bid. So both these teams have something to play for, right? So both these teams want to prove a point to the playoff committee that, listen, you made a mistake by not putting us in. I know, again, Florida State's basically been all over the place, right? Again, saying that, listen, we went undefeated and didn't get in. And like I said, Georgia also has a valid argument. I think I'm going with Georgia in this one. I think they are the better team, especially with Florida State not having their quarterback, Jordan Travis, with his injury. And on top of that, I think Florida State mentally is just like almost checked out, right? They talked about maybe not like boycotting the game, not playing the game, right? And I think they're mentally checked out that they're not going to come in prepared for this one. I think Georgia's going to give them the work. Now, again, if this actually does happen, it's not great for Florida State, right? How they were on their soapbox about how they deserve to get in. If they go and get smoked, right, it does not help their case at all. What they need is to go and win in order to help prove their point. Like I said, both these teams need to prove their point. But I'm going with the Bulldogs.
Jay, who are you taking?
As AJ said perfectly, I'm going with the Dogs as well. They're going to put in the work against Florida State.
I'm going to complete the sweep and also go with Georgia. I think this is going to be very similar to the national championship of last year of Georgia versus TCU. This is just a matchup that is just so far off that Georgia's not only going to beat them, but they're going to roll them. I do think that Florida State not having their starting quarterback definitely plays into it, and that goes into the whole debate of, why Florida State wasn't given a top 4 spot to go in the college football playoff. But I think it's a major mismatch. Even if they're all locked in, Georgia is just too elite. With the talent that they have, they are clearly the 5th best team in the country, if not higher, but guaranteed no lower than 5th. They're going to roll them. It's unfortunate. It's probably not even going to be a fun game to watch, but we will tune in regardless. All right, let's move over to the Cotton Bowl. Ohio State versus Missouri. AJ, who are you taking?
Yeah, so for me, this one's tough. I am going to go with the Buckeyes here. I think the Buckeyes are the better team. They are basically one win away from being in the playoff, right? If they beat Michigan, they're in, right? They just happen to lose a tough one to Michigan. And I think for that reason, right, they are the better team. They are going to deserve to win this one. Missouri for me too. I gotta say is a respectable season for them. Right, this is a Missouri team that usually is not this good. They usually kind of get beat up on a little bit in the SEC, but they did well this year. They fended for themselves. They lose to their obvious teams. But other than that, they hung in pretty well this year. I just think that Ohio State, top to bottom, is the better team.
Jay, who are you taking?
Ohio State being so close to the playoff in Missouri, having a good season, but I'm just going to see Ohio State has the better talent, better coaching, and they're going to overpower the Tigers in the Cotton Bowl. So give me the Buckeyes.
All right, I'm going to pick against the pack this time. I'm not 100% sure, so Teal Nation, don't eat me alive. But I'm pretty sure Kyle McCord is not playing in this game. He is transferring to Syracuse. If I'm not mistaken, Missouri's quarterback will be playing in this, and I think that will be the difference maker here. He's super passionate. The fans are rallying behind them. This is a really good team. Do not count them out. Their 2 losses have been against 2 really good SEC schools, UGA being one of them. I just don't see Missouri going out without a fight. And I think realistically, yes, Kyle McCord has not played amazing ball, and there's a reason why he's going to Syracuse. But I just don't have a lot of faith that they're going to be able to pull it together with whoever they're going with at quarterback. I think that it will be a close game, though, because Ohio State is stacked with talent top to bottom. But I think Missouri, with their quarterback, with how he's rallied this team all season long, I think it's going to get them to the point where even if it's like only a 1 to 3 point victory, I think Missouri will pull this off. All right, let's move over to the Peach Bowl. Ole Miss versus Penn State. AJ, who you taking?
This is another good one, as are all these matchups. Well, except one. This is another good one. But both these teams are, you look on paper again, two lost teams, but both of them have respectable 2 losses. Ole Miss with their 2 losses were Georgia and Alabama, right? 2 really good teams. Penn State's 2 losses were Michigan and Ohio State. Again, those are 2 respectable losses on each side. And then this is just a nice little grudge match here, right? Both these teams have been kind of slept on, right? I mean, maybe if they win one of those games, right, they're in a conversation for something. Maybe they probably get to play in a conference championship or something. So this is a nice little deciding one for them. I'm going with the Nittany Lions in this one. Again, these 2 teams are hard to compare. But I don't know what it is. I just have a feeling that Penn State's the better team and that they really want this one more. I think they're gonna go out and get it.
Jay, who are you going to be taking in the Peach Bowl?
Give me Jackson Dart and Lane Kiffin. Give me the SEC and Hottie Toddy with the win against the Nittany Lions.
I'm also going to complete the sweep on this one as well. I just don't see Penn State after their fall off. Yes, they're not bad. They're still a really good team. There's all these teams except for one, as AJ mentioned. AJ mentioned all the games, but in general, all the teams except for one deserve to be in the New Year's Six, and we'll kind of get to that in a little bit, right? One team is not like the rest. You can point them out yourself. But I think Ole Miss is just better. I think Dart is going to be throwing darts in this game. I think it will be a fun game to watch. I think this will be another close one. But yeah, let's go with Lane Kiffin and his boys at Ole Miss. All right, we're getting to that part of the segment that we've been hinting at, the Fiesta Bowl, Liberty versus Oregon. AJ, who are you taking?
Like you said, Hunter, I mentioned all these games are good except for one. This is the one. Again, I have as much hope as somebody that comes from a Group of 5 school that the Group of 5 team that makes it in will always give them a shot, give them a run for their money, everything else. But I just don't see it. Again, Liberty did go undefeated. Again, we have our battles with them because they took our head coach. But I think that this Liberty team, yes, 13-0, they have the same FSU treatment, right? Where, yes, they're good, but they haven't played anybody, right? They played in the Cupcake USA. They really haven't played anybody. And then this is an Oregon team that is, yes, 2 losses, but they lost to the same team twice in 2 tough ones. And this is not there's people transferring, whatever, that could give them a break. No, Bo Nix is Heisman runner-up, looking for the draft, right? I assume he might play in this one. I don't know that for sure. Again, don't hate on me for that if he doesn't. But even then, this Oregon team is on the up and up, right? Things are looking good in Eugene. They just got 2 big-time signings, right? They just signed Dylan Gabriel, which is Oklahoma's quarterback, is now going to Eugene. And then they also, I believe, are in the works or did sign or are currently going to sign Dante Moore, which is UCLA's quarterback that we saw this year when Coastal battled them. So that's a really strong quarterback room in Oregon on top of, again, a lot of these other guys going there. So like I said, things are looking up for them. And again, just in this one, as in general, I think it's just, listen, Oregon had a tough schedule. They had to survive the gauntlet of the Pac-12. This is a really good team. And I think Liberty, even though their record says 13-0, they haven't really played anybody. So it'll be a test like they have not seen yet. They're only giving Oregon a 17-point favorite. I think it will be an absolute smoke show. Give me the Ducks.
All right, Jay, who are you taking? You taking Chadwell's team or you taking Bo Nix's team?
Short and sweet. Give me the Ducks. The Ducks will fan the flames.
I like that title, Jay. I like that. So I'm going to pretty much piggyback off of everything that AJ said. I think when you look at it, not only did Oregon survive the gauntlet of the Pac-12, there are only 2 losses, unless I'm wrong, which I think I'm right here, are both to Washington, right? They're to Washington, the regular season, Washington in the Pac-12 championship. They lost to the almost guaranteed national champion. I know these guys don't believe it. I picked them. I still believe it. They're going to win that. But listen, that's something to talk about here in a little bit. But Oregon is better than personally most of the teams out there. I think you can even make an argument as to why they should be in the CFP. You're like, well, they have 2 losses. True. And that's why obviously Alabama and Texas are over them. But realistically, they've only lost to one team. They just lost to that same team twice. And that, in my opinion, is the team who's at number 2, who should be at number 1. But hey, that's just my opinion here. So I'll go with Oregon, complete the sweep. I just don't even think if you're betting at Vegas that you can even bet on Liberty. Like, how can you possibly think that this Liberty Flames team, with one of the worst strength of schedules we've ever seen of a ranked top 25 team, can somehow beat an Oregon team who's only lost to the number 2 team in the country and has a phenomenal quarterback like Bo Nix? It's just not going to happen. I mean, the real question here is Oregon going to beat them by 10 or is Oregon going to beat them by 40? That's really what you're watching this game for. Is Liberty going to be able to hang in there, or is Liberty going to get their teeth kicked in? I'd love to see the latter. But hey, I'm picking Oregon, and let's move on to the Rose Bowl. AJ, who are you picking between Michigan and Alabama?
All right, here we go. The playoff time. Everybody knows this is where it really, really counts. Again, this is where it really gets tough, and it's like you can nitpick everything, but all these teams, this matchup and the next matchup, are so evenly matched. Alabama, again, Nick Saban and company. Again, Alabama was a team that they were like, okay, maybe on the outside, maybe sneak in, found a way to deliver in the SEC championship. But this is a team that early in the season lost to Texas right away. And everybody's like, oh no, what's going to happen? And they almost lost to USF, right? Like on the road. It was like it was tough early season for them. And they found a way to battle back and again win the SEC title game against Georgia and get themselves in the CFP. But for that reason, I'm going to go with the Wolverines of Michigan here. I think even though the Big Ten is the East is strong, the West not so much. I think the fact that Michigan was able to beat your Penn States, they were able to beat Ohio States, and stuff like that, even when battling all like the things that will mentally check you out of it, like the cheating allegations and everything else. It's been going on with them losing their head coach for a while, right? That he wasn't coaching some of their games for like half the season, right? And being able to battle through those things and still win, it's done a lot for this team. And for that reason, I'm going to go with the Wolverines.
Jay, who are you taking in this matchup?
Give me the Crimson Tide, and you can't bet against Nick Saban in these playoff games. I mean, he lives for these moments, and also the Crimson Tide do. So give me the Crimson Tide over the Wolverines.
For me, I'm going to be taking the Crimson Tide here. When you look at Dave Portnoy making the statement that Michigan's not only going to beat Alabama, but they're going to roll them, and you can see he's one of the most prominent sports icon, non-former players out there. You know, Alabama has been running that clip in the locker room. Nick Saban putting it out there to his boys. Oh, yeah, Dave Portnoy thinks that Michigan's going to roll us. Alabama's going to turn that into some sort of remix and is going to be blasting that in the indoor facilities all bowl season long. And I think the Crimson Tide are not just going to beat Michigan, but they're going to make an example of never count out Nick Saban. I don't give a damn about nothing but the Tide. Roll Tide. All right, let's move on to our final picks. The Sugar Bowl. AJ, who you got between Washington and Texas?
Yeah, so Hunter, first I'd like to formally apologize for being almost not a Husky hater, but I have been picking against the Huskies basically all season. Again, I don't think that it was a lack of talent on this team because I knew this team was insanely good, but I just thought that Oregon was going to find a way to beat them at least once. And if they beat them in one of those 2 games, right, this is a very different conversation, right? Then it comes down to which one of those teams gets in, right? And it makes everything way more complicated. I think if Oregon would have beaten them in the conference championship game, Oregon would be the one sitting in this game. But again, I apologize for hating on the Huskies maybe a little bit. Like I said, I know this team is insanely talented, and that's why I'm going to pick them to win this game. I think Rome Odunze on top of Penix, they're just a problem duo. Again, on top of like they're just a pretty good team. And when you survive the Pac-12 gauntlet, right, that really is, right. You're talking about you had to beat primetime Deion Sanders with all the hype around him. I know the team as a talent level wasn't that good, but they had to shut him up, right. You had to beat Oregon not once but twice. That they were able to do that. You had to beat still Caleb Williams and USC. You had to beat them. You had to beat a Utah team that was sneaky good, right. There are a lot of good. UCLA was still in the conversation, right. There's a lot of them, right. Oregon State, et cetera, et cetera. Pac-12 is a good conference, and they were able to somehow get out of that undefeated, right, with the title in hand. And then as far as the Texas team goes, the Texas team is like a head scratcher. I just don't know what to get out of them, right? They started off hot, right, beating Alabama. People are like, okay, Texas is legit, but then they lost to Oklahoma, and then everyone's like, all right, maybe not. And then the Big 12 just isn't as strong as it, is or has been, right? We're talking about the runner-up in that Big 12 championship game was Oklahoma State, which is a good team, but not as good as some of these other years, right, where you get an absolute grueler. And again, I just think Washington is battle tested, and they're ready for this one. So give me the Huskies.
Jay, I have a feeling the team you're picking is going to be real interesting in this one. Who do you have in this Sugar Bowl matchup?
Who I have in the All-State Sugar Bowl I got the Texas Longhorns. Hook 'em horns, baby. They're going to pull the upset, and it's going to be a rematch between the Tide and the Longhorns.
Goodness gracious, Jay. I respect the pick, but AJ, thank you for coming to the light. Listen, this whole season, especially a couple weeks ago, I want to say it's like 5 weeks ago or something, when we did our first Natty Championship Final Four picks, when I picked Washington to be in my top four every single time that we had a chance. I think we had 3 times to create our top 4 picks before submitting them in a week before the final week of regular season college football. But I've always had faith in Washington. And like I said, it wasn't something against Oregon. It was the fact that I just knew that Washington was better. Well, that Oregon's a really good team, but Washington was just better. And they proved it to me twice. And I appreciate AJ, understanding that and seeing that, this team is something special. I am a Coastal Carolina fan. I'm not a Washington fan. I just saw something and I roll with it. And so I like to take credit for that. I'm that guy in this podcast that saw this shit coming. If they win the Natty, ain't nobody going to hear the end of it. Because not only did I call it, but I also predicted that since the first prediction of who my national champion would be. Like I said, I've had Washington in my top 4 all 3 times we submitted picks, but I also had Washington as my Natty champion the whole time. So listen, put some respect on Washington. Horns down. Let's roll with Washington to get them one step closer to a national championship. All right, ladies and gentlemen of the Teal Nation, that concludes our final segment for episode 9 of the Keeping It Teal podcast. Thank you for listening to our latest episode of the Keeping It Teal podcast. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube, X, Instagram, and Spotify to keep up to date with all things Teal. Until next time, good night, Teal Nation.